Introduction to Entrepreneurship, Unit 2, from Chapter 10, Lesson 4, Part 1.
Let's start by talking about what entrepreneurship means. What's easy for us to recognize is that it involves initiating a business venture. And that is also why we talk about different ownership types or opportunities and when it's the right approach for a certain kind of business. But it's more than that. An entrepreneur is not just someone registering and starting a business. They are responsible for organizing the necessary resources, for directing them in order to achieve their vision. And that means that they have to assume the risks and potential rewards for this venture that they have envisioned. An entrepreneur, therefore, is the person that engages in this process of entrepreneurship. There are several things that we can identify as fitting in this category of entrepreneurship. Of course, there's the valuable idea, there's assuming the financial and legal risks, and then, what I suppose would be most exciting, there's the potential of receiving the business's profits. It's also important for us to just take a closer look at the different motivations that people could have for engaging in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs have different motivations for starting a business. Let's look at each of these. The first category is sustainers. These are people that specifically started their business to create a work-life balance. And so they don't want the company to get too big because then they can't maintain that personal life balance. They might actually prevent the company from getting too big just because it doesn't fit with their motivation. Next, we have jugglers. These are high-energy people who enjoy handling every little detail of their own business. They might not like it if their business gets too big, just because then they lose the control over every aspect of it. So for them, the motivation is to just really take charge of every little detail. Next, we have hard workers. Now, I don't want to make it appear at all as if all entrepreneurs aren't hard workers, but in this category, what we see is that entrepreneurs specifically are motivated to build a large, very profitable business. So already you can see that there's a growth imperative in their motivation. The next category is optimizers. These are people that get a lot of satisfaction from being the business owner. And so for them, they might not want to start a business and sell it off to a larger company just because it doesn't fit their motivation. Our last category is idealists. These are entrepreneurs that are motivated by the idea of working on something new and creative, probably on the cutting edge of development in their field. And so entrepreneurs in this category might start a business and sell it off to an investor so that they can pursue their motivation and work on the next new creative idea. When most entrepreneurs start their business, they will probably begin by creating a small business. So this is normally something that's independently owned. There aren't shareholders, although there might be some investors. And it's independently owned and operated, and it's organized for profit. Now remember, an organization is a social entity, but the reason it's organized in this instance is for a profit motive. There are some different ideas about when something is a small business and when it becomes medium or large, but what we can agree is that these businesses are really meeting the challenges of the economy as they are being presented today. It's quite a daunting task, but small businesses are often flexible and quite able to meet the challenge.
Entrepreneurship has an undeniable impact on the economies of the countries where these entrepreneurs can be found. It is a tremendous phenomenon internationally, and in many budget speeches you will notice that it is touted as the answer to whatever the questions of economic growth and malaise might be. What's particularly interesting is the role that it plays in the economy in terms of new jobs and new opportunities, new patents. A measure of innovation is how many patents are registered in a particular economy. And research indicates that small, innovative firms, often with, of course, innovative cultures, register far more patents than large established firms that might have very well-funded research and development departments. So we see in entrepreneurial companies engines for job creation and innovation that help to explain why this phenomenon is booming across the world. Entrepreneurship has experienced a tremendous boost throughout the world because of advances in technology and the expansion of the middle class, especially middle class consumers in China and India. What's really interesting about the table on this page is that it shows the amount of individuals active in starting or managing businesses in 2018. And look at the countries that are at the top of the list: Angola in Africa, Guatemala in South America. The score that you're seeing here is the total entrepreneurial activity. It's a specific measurement that reflects the percentage of people between the ages of 18 and 64 in a population who are involved in entrepreneurships as owner managers or starting a business. And it's actually tremendous to see such a high percentage in some of these unexpected places.
It might be tempting to get stuck with a stereotype of a certain type of entrepreneur in your head, but I'd like to discourage you from this by just thinking about who the modern entrepreneur is. There's some interesting research that tells us it's often the firstborn in a family, with traits akin to taking responsibility. We also see that immigrants are often prone to start businesses. As they arrive in a new environment or community, they often have to find themselves as the creators of opportunity, and entrepreneurship is often their route to do this. There's an increasing rate of women embracing entrepreneurship. And what we see in many countries is that minorities often show a high rate of entrepreneurship, making their own space in society. As younger people become entrepreneurs due to changes in the economy, and if you look in South Africa, specifically our high youth unemployment rate, entrepreneurship will continue to be increasingly diverse, challenging our perceptions of who the modern entrepreneur is. Regardless of the demographic diversity of entrepreneurs that we've just discussed, we do see that there are certain personality traits that entrepreneurs often have in common. For example, they place a high importance on being free to achieve and not being dictated to. They're also driven to maximize their potential. And so research studies agree on at least 7 important traits for entrepreneurs: autonomy, high energy, need to achieve, self-confidence, entrepreneurial struggle, tolerance for ambiguity, and power and influence. Let's take a closer look at each of these characteristics. Many entrepreneurs report that autonomy was the most important reason that they chose to start their own business. And essentially, it means that they have the freedom to make their own decisions and they don't have to answer to a boss. Another important and interesting trait of entrepreneurs is entrepreneurial struggle. Entrepreneurs are a special breed of people. They have the ability to persevere and stay positive after long periods of struggle that would discourage most people. Power and influence is another important motivator. Although not equally so for all entrepreneurs, some business people do start a company so that they can become influential and powerful. Another important trait is high energy. Being an entrepreneur is hard work. It's often not anything like the 40-hour week that you're likely to get as an employee. And so entrepreneurs have to be willing to put in whatever it takes. Another trait is the need to achieve. Entrepreneurs are a breed of people that are motivated to excel, and they're often likely to pick a situation in which success is likely. They often set goals that are quite challenging to achieve, although just possible, so that they can continue motivating themselves. Another important trait is self-confidence. Starting a business is tough going, and there isn't always someone to encourage you along the way. So entrepreneurs need to be able to believe in themselves and be sure in their ability, for example, to win customers or make decisions in difficult situations. The last characteristic is tolerance for ambiguity. When you start a business, there is not a lot that you can be sure of. And so entrepreneurs have to be comfortable with the unknown and the unclear. Disorder and uncertainty can't put them off. Do you remember our uncertainty avoidance index and the cultural profiles? And then you'll see that that aligns very nicely with the entrepreneur's personal value of having a tolerance for ambiguity. While there are several other traits that we could identify to add to our profile, these are a really good start in terms of understanding who the entrepreneur is. We've spoken about how entrepreneurs take on the risks and also the potential rewards of business. But there is a new form of entrepreneurship that bears mentioning. And in social entrepreneurship, making a profit is only the secondary purpose of a business. The primary purpose is finding a solution to social problems. So a social entrepreneur is geared to try and help society, whether it's pollution, hunger, or a cure for treatable diseases. Social entrepreneurs are looking to be part of the solution, and they are combining the creativity, passion, and hard work that we would recognize in a traditional entrepreneur with a social mission to change the world. A really good example is Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank. He's quite notorious now, winning a Nobel Peace Prize for his microcredit loans in Bangladesh. But when he started, he saw an opportunity that no one else thought was viable at that time. And he lent very small amounts of money to female entrepreneurs that were too poor to access traditional credit. What he found is that each one of these women not only paid him back in time, but used the money to start a business and uplift her family. This model has now been spread to over 100 other countries. And so, while Grameen Bank has made good money, the more important mandate that they've achieved is social cohesion and improvement.